Welcome back. Now it's time for the news briefing. We're going to take you through some of today's front pages. Here they are. Well, it's no surprise that almost all of the UK papers feature Boris Johnson's suspension of Parliament on their front page. We begin with The Guardian, which says there is outrage at the 5-week pause during a critical period, adding that MPs are readying a historic parliamentary clash to prevent a no-deal Brexit. The Financial Times describes the reaction as constitutional uproar, adding that Mr Johnson was daring his opponents to vote down his government. The paper's editorial says the home of British democracy is being denied a say in those consequential decision for more than 40 years. The headline in The Times is Johnson goes for broke, alongside a picture of the Prime Minister clenching his fist. The paper says Mr Johnson surprised his opponents but pushed Britain to the brink of a constitutional crisis. The Scottish Daily Mail has this picture of Scottish Conservative leader Ruth Davidson, who's expected to quit today, delivering a major blow, it says, to Boris Johnson. And finally, the free paper, The Metro, has this very serious picture of the Queen, who it says has been dragged into the Brexit row. It also says his opponents, Boris Johnson's opponents, have branded him a tin pot dictator. Well, with me now is Cornelia Meyer, who's going to go through some of these papers in more detail. Welcome to you, CEO of MRL Corporation, a business consultancy. So let's start with The Guardian's front page. Outrage, their headline, as Johnson suspends Parliament. Cross-party rebel alliance, sounds like something out of Star Wars, doesn't it? Have agreed to focus on the fast-tracking legislation aimed at getting rid of this.
You couldn't make it up, even in Star Wars, if you tried. Interesting. If you look at all the papers, it's the ones who are pro-Brexit say Johnson did the right thing. The ones who are against Brexit say, oh, it's an outrage. And the Guardian says, well, it is. You know, they're talking about outrage. They're also making one very other pertinent point, which they say, okay, he's proroguing for about 5 weeks. From 12 September to 7 October, or to 14 October. But de facto, he's only proroguing it for 4 to 6 days because you have the party conference season. But we can always argue that, do we really need party conferences in a time as divisive and as crucial as this? And that is a very crucial point because, yes, Johnson has the right to prorogue, and yes, he has the right to have a Queen's speech to show his programme. But these are very extraordinary times, and what he's putting is putting fuel in the flames with this.
We haven't heard much from Europe. They were keeping their powder dry yesterday, but there is a quote
from Verhofstadt.
Yeah, Verhofstadt, who's the EU Brexit coordinator, and he's called it sinister, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think Europe sees it as sinister, and I think there's two things. I've just actually been to Brussels, so there's two things to say there. Yes, Verhofstadt sees it sinister, and Johnson probably says, okay, if I do this gamesmanship, this brinkmanship, they will cave in and they will give us a deal because Germany needs a deal, Holland needs a deal, France needs a deal. They may not. He may really, that may put their backs up too much, and we need a deal more than they need a deal. We have to be, clear about that. And so this is brinkmanship at its highest.
Absolutely, at its highest. Let's have a look at the Financial Times front page. Uproar as Johnson shuts down Parliament to protect the Brexit plan. Very, very upset about this. They've also got an editorial comment saying that the seat of parliamentary democracy is being denied a say. Jeremy Corbyn says, the Labour of the Leader Party, that they will act swiftly to prevent what Boris Johnson is doing and challenge him with a motion of no confidence.
Well, that's very nice, but what do they have to have about 4 days until they're prorogued? So this is going to be very tough. Yes, they've had conversations, but it's going to be tough to get anything done in that time. And it's extraordinary times. And if you look at the Financial Times, I mean, obviously they're also worried about the economy. And as you said, the pound slipped by 1 cent. So it's extraordinary times, and business needs certainty. And what he has done by proroguing is injected yet another thing of uncertainty. And that's another thing that Brussels is fed up with Brexit. They had to hold all of their debates on climate change, on migration, because of Brexit. So they really want to be on the other side of this.
Is there an argument when it comes to certainty that at least suggest whatever happens, Boris Johnson is forcing a decision either way. That come what may, if he says what he says is true, October 31st, deal or no deal, we're out. At least then business, the markets, the economy will know. Isn't that better than this stalemate that we've had for 3 years?
It's interesting because when you talk to businesses up and down the country, that's what they will tell you, that we can't live with this uncertainty any longer. We will deal with a no-deal Brexit. But then when you look at the real consequences of a no-deal Brexit, it would be devastating for many businesses, especially for manufacturing, cars and so on. So I think whichever way it goes, we will see less investment. A lot of investment has been held off because of the uncertainty, but we will see less investment than we saw when we were still in the EU.
Right, let's have a look at the Times. Johnson goes for broke. How much of a gamble is this for him, if there is indeed at some point, even if it's not in the next couple of weeks, but further down the line, mid-October, say, after the European Council meeting, if there is a vote of no confidence?
Well, yeah, but what he has planned this all through. I mean, if they want him to, it was interesting. This article says they have planned it all through, and if they want to force an extension of Article 31, they'll filibuster it in the House of Lords. And if there is a vote of no confidence, he will not step down, but he will call for an election. I mean, whichever way we go, it's very divisive. And the thing that I looked at all this planning and plotting. Wouldn't it be good if we put that energy into dealing with the EU?
Well, they say they are, don't they? And they're forcing this issue now, and that their negotiations are already going on behind the scenes. Who knows? We certainly don't.
Who knows? But the EU, for the EU, I mean, what are they to make of us? I mean, now there's another curveball. It's just curveball after curveball after curveball.
The paper says, the Times says, that Britain has been pushed to the brink of a constitutional crisis. Much debate yesterday about the Queen's role in all of this, that even though it was her right to, in theory, not agree to the proroguing of Parliament, she couldn't do that. She wouldn't want to be seen to be interfering politically. How do you think that this leaves her? I'm surprised actually that more of the front pages haven't put kind of pictures of her and question about how she feels about this decision. How difficult is it for the Queen?
It's probably very difficult, but what is she to do? Because it is the right of the Prime Minister to ask for a prorogation. So he's asked for it, and it's the right of a new cabinet to say, okay, we want to have a Queen's speech. So it's really very difficult. What makes this? It's because it's such difficult times that he's really sort of put the cat amongst the pigeons here.
Well, now to make matters worse, Jeremy Corbyn has written to the Queen asking her to overturn this decision, which puts her in an even more invidious position.
But she can't do that, and yes, he's Her Majesty, he's the leader of Her Majesty's opposition, but that puts her in a very difficult position, and she's certainly not going to overturn it, because then she doesn't want to be. I don't think she wants to be, and it's not her role to be dragged in this back and forth on Brexit and all of these things.
Whether she likes it or not, she has been, hasn't she? A Scottish Daily Mail, a picture of Ruth Davidson here, the leader of the Conservatives in Scotland. Lots of speculation yesterday that she's going to quit today. We haven't heard a statement yet, but it is still very early. She has clashed with Boris Johnson in the past, and she backed his opponent, Jeremy Corbyn, in the leadership contest. But they're suggesting here that it's not about Brexit and this decision to prorogue Parliament. It's more about her family.
Well, I'm sure that's what she says. But I mean, no, she is. It would be for the Conservatives. It might be a sad thing, because she was the one success story of the 2017 election. She got the Scottish MSPs. Yeah. She got them up. She got them up from 1 to 13. Yeah. So that's where. And she pleaded with Boris Johnson to keep the former Scottish Secretary David Mundell on, and he sacked him and put in Alistair Jack. So she lost on that one. But Scotland is, that is the thing. What is going to happen to the Union? Because the Scots are getting more and more to say, okay, let's have another referendum, bring it on, and we may have more people voting for leaving. So what these shenanigans may be doing is maybe putting the Union at risk. I don't know, but it might be.
quick look at the front page of the Metro. Pro-rogue state, their headline. Opponents brand Boris Johnson a tin pot dictator, but he says it's got nothing to do with Brexit. I mean, interesting to see how that's going to play out today, because obviously no one believes that in a million years.
And it was wonderful when he gave the statement to the BBC yesterday morning. He couldn't stop smiling while he said it was about the NHS, about more police, about investment in infrastructure and lowering the cost of living. It's clear what it is, but such is politics.
Cornelia, great to have you with us. Thanks very much for taking
Thank
us
you.
through the papers. Well,